Hello, I am Baymax, your personal healthcare companion. Please remember, it is fun to be smart. Have fun.
Well, thank you so much, Baymax. Yes, that was indeed the beloved Baymax from Big Hero 6. Compliments of the voice of Baymax, the incredible actor, voiceover actor, stage performer, and comedian Scott Adsit. I had the pleasure of talking with Scott again for I think the fifth or sixth time the other day in preparation of not only the Oscars for Big Hero 6, which is nominated for Best Feature at the Animated Feature at Academy Awards, but also for the home video release, which is coming up. Digital is coming out, I think, this week, and then the full collector edition DVD Blu-rays later on in the month, and we'll be talking more about that later. But it's always good to have Baymax telling us to have fun and have a good day. So, welcome everybody to Behind the Lens. This is now, show number 6. We're halfway into February. I'm Lynn, Elias. I'm here alone today. I've been abandoned by my two co-hosts who are off doing other things. Chad Miller and Greg. I know I'm going to screw up Greg's name. Srizavazdi. And he's going to shoot me for this. But they will both be here next week when we talk Oscars and Spirit Awards, as will Josh Idikoff, projectionist at Idikoff Screening Room, and part of the Idikoff legacy that has been so instrumental in the movie industry for everybody on both sides of the camera. So you're stuck with me today with a little help from Baymax. It's an exciting show today. I've been looking forward to this ever since I interviewed my two guests who are going to be calling in. At 11:15 today, we've got Jonathon Narducci calling in. Jonathon has just directed a documentary called Love Me about mail-order brides, Ukrainian mail-order brides, and the American men who seek them out. It is funny. It is at times raucous. At times you hang your head and you shake it in just absolute disbelief. But it is also extremely enlightening and informative. So Jonathon will be calling in at 11:15. That will be a joy, especially when I get him to talk about shooting 400 hours of footage. And at 11:30, I am beyond excited to have Jane Clark calling in. We've already been warned about how many times we can say the title of this film. She is writer-director of this very cool blend of thriller, horror, girl buddy picture, called Crazy Bitches. Okay, that was once. We got 6 more passes to go through the course of the hour. It is absolutely hilarious. There are some great performances in there and some incredible production values, which, as you will hear, is very important to Jane, as is how the film came to be. But before our guests start calling in, let me just take a moment here to go back to Big Hero 6 for a second. As part of the pre-Oscar coverage, I had a chance to revisit again with the co-directors Don Hall and Chris Williams. Don and Chris, I have known them each for a number of years. Don, we first met back when he did Winnie the Pooh. He directed Winnie the Pooh, which was a hand-drawn film championed by John Lasseter over at Walt Disney Animation Studios. Chris Williams, he previously directed Bolt, which I think to this day is still a very underrated animation film. But together they have given us Big Hero 6, which is a new classic. Let's be honest. It is a new classic that will be here for generations of kids and adults alike to enjoy. So we had a chance to hook up and talk about a number of things, starting with a prediction that I made.
So nice of you
to join us.
Thank you.
So happy to see you yet again.
I'm thrilled.
We were counting the number of times we've been together. It's a lot. But she called the Oscar nomination back when we were just showing the clips in the theater.
You did. I remember.
You're right.
It's always very gratifying when somebody says you were right, and it's a director the caliber of Chris Williams. So, part of the joy of Big Hero 6 is that they've pushed the envelope. And a lot of that is due to, as the boys will talk about and you'll hear throughout the program today, a lot of that is due to John Lasseter, who kept encouraging them to go to places they hadn't gone before. But part of the big thing right now is this momentum dealing with Oscars, and the fact this is first nominations for both of them. It has been a wild ride. When I first saw clips of the film back in July, it wasn't even finished. So have they even had a chance with all the promotion, with the premieres, with the international premieres, have they even had a chance to sit back and realize what was happening? Here's what they had to say.
As this has started to take shape since the theatrical release, did you see the momentum building? Could you feel it? Did it become a sensory experience for you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's been a little strange just because the release has been so staggered. To us it feels like it's been, decades since it was released. Since we did the Tokyo premiere and then the domestic release. But
it's a long rollout.
It's a long rollout, but it does. The good thing is it does feel like momentum has kind of carried it through those times in between, I guess, trips and stuff like that, and little things happen along the way where you're like, wow, okay, I think we've made it into some popular culture zeitgeist. Like some Christmas carolers came to my house on Christmas Eve, and it was just a bunch of neighbor folks, and they sang, and then afterwards they said thank you for Big Hero 6, and then they did the fist bump thing. And
that's
it was
cute.
Just like the coolest Christmas gift somebody could ever give you. It was really cool.
And it really started to happen around the time of the release, because up until then we're busy working on the film, and you got your head down,
right?
And you're in this insular sort of environment because everything is about getting the movie to be as good as it can be. But around the time of the release, we started feeling good about how it was going to play, and really for me, the most important moment was opening weekend, going to a theater, sitting with an audience, and feeling the reaction, hearing people laughing straight away, hearing them get choked up at the emotional parts. That's when I knew, I think there's something about this movie that's going to touch a nerve everywhere. And the Baymax character especially, there's this purity to him and this goodness that crosses borders. You know what I mean? Everybody responds to that kind of selflessness. And so we love those kind of characters growing up, Bambi and Dumbo and those sorts of characters, and Baymax is one of those, a really sweet, naive, gullible, guileless, I should say, character. And so I think that he's been a big part of the reason why it's become this big thing.
And I really think I feel the need to hear Baymax again, Brian. I think everybody needs to hear Baymax again after that.
Hello, I am Baymax, your personal healthcare companion. Please remember, it is fun to be smart. Have fun.
And this is my own personal plush Baymax. You can get your own as well. They have various sizes, but apparently the size larger than this, as Scott Adsit was even saying, they're sold out even in all the Disney parks. Nobody can get the bigger ones, but these are still available. Every kid, big or small, wants their own Baymax. I love my Baymax, and nobody gets their hands on this. But it is the charm of this little marshmallow fluff that everyone has fallen in love with. But another part of Baymax is also, as we've been talking about in recent weeks, the importance of color, especially in animated movies. And one of the interesting things that you're going to hear Don and Chris talk about now is the use going into the purples again. Purple is becoming a very predominant and prevalent color in animation of late. And what's interesting is that typically purple, especially in the Marvel world, which is where Big Hero 6 originated, was a tiny little thing in the vaults of Marvel that sparked Don Hall's creativity. Purple's typically been linked to villains, but now it's being turned into the sign of power and goodness. So let's hear them talk about the use of color from Honey Lemon and her pink to Wasabi and his Wasabi green.
It is, yeah. I mean, but before we can go into depth with it, actually, there was a version of the team very early on that was going to be a little more found object-y, as far as like a little more ragtag, a little more thrown together, with stuff coming from junkyards and that kind of thing, and it was going to be a much more muted palette for this team, and I'm the one that started pushing the art team to go down in that direction. I think everybody was satisfied with it, but I started wondering about it, if that's the right approach, because it just didn't seem quite as fun. And to Chris's point, it's like there's some darker elements to the movie. Well, should we balance it out with a little more saturation and lightness? And so then I kind of reversed course and said, okay, let's rethink this. Mm-hmm. And we started looking at a lot of Japanese TV shows from the 60s, the precursors to the it's called Kamen Rider, but the Power Rangers and that kind of thing. So we started really doing a lot of research in that area, and they always seem to have that kind of brighter color and a more fun palette to them, and so pushed the art team to look at that, and Lorelei Bove, who did a lot of color work on the film, she just I gave her the team and said, come up with some really interesting palette for these guys, and I liked that it would connect to like Wasabi, at least because Wasabi's green, keep it kind of, and keep it themed like that. But she chose really interesting, combinations of things, like that kind of vermilion, orange, red mixed with a purple. You just don't see that. Or even Honey Lemon, where it's that really kind of magenta with a really happy, bright orange. And they're just odd, and in a great way, And what I loved about it is it was giving our team a really signature look, because the world of San Francisco was going to have a lot more muted tones to it, because again, we're going for a very realistic palette, right? Realistic look, and obviously there's some really saturated parts with the neon and those big goofy signs and stuff like that. So it was going to be colorful, yes, but I think it was important for the team to pop against all that they have very saturated, bright colors. It just made it more fun. They started to really look like a team, and they started to just look like, if I was a kid, I'd want to play with those action figures, not in a I want to sell action figures kind of way, but in a I know what would appeal to me when I was that age. And so, but I love the fact that Hero's uniform is basically black and purple, and those are non-traditional colors even in Marvel. Yeah. Essentially, purple is delegated to villains in the Marvel universe, and to me, what I kind of like, this is just my own dorky geek philosophy, but because this is sort of an alternate universe, and that purple is actually used for the good guys in this film, And
there are also times where color is used to support the emotional story. Right. Like you probably caught that Baymax's color, the armor, the red armor, is also used on Tadashi's scooter. So we're trying to have those connections between Baymax and Tadashi as well.
Well, and you heard them mention the magenta, the pinkish that's in Honey Lemon's costume. That's also a very prevalent color that's taking place right now in some other films out there, most notably The Voices from Marjane Satrapi. I adore Marjane. She is the woman behind, the writer-director behind Persepolis, behind Chicken with Plums. And with The Voices, it stars Ryan Reynolds. It's a very dark, dark, dark comedy. And anybody that knows Marjane's work expects the dark comedy. She also is going into that pink and orange territory. Her reason, though, is totally different than the boys with Big Hero 6. She goes with pink because she really likes pink. So, John Narducci will be with us in a moment. We're going to take a break right now and be right back. Behind the Lens is sponsored in part by the Culver City Observer. Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com. And we are back. And with with me right now is the incredible John Narducci. John, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me.
I am so thrilled to have you. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I mean, we had a great time talking about this film the other day because, as I said, I knew nothing about it. And most people have a very strange connotation of what the mail-order bride business is. For me, I didn't realize it was such a big deal today. I was still in that Hallmark Lifetime movie channel, Daphne Zuniga mail-order bride telemovie mentality. But that's not at all what's going on in the world out there, is it?
No, it's a digital dating world now, and just like Match.com and Tinder and all these other dating sites have kind of become commonplace for us here in the States, that's kind of also become more common in international dating. So it's like email order brides now instead of just mail order brides.
I like that, email order brides.
Yeah.
So now, for a director, this is not exactly what you would think of as your first choice for a feature film or documentary. Now I know the answer to this, but our listeners and our viewers won't know it. What led you to this particular subject?
This subject was introduced to me, 12 years ago through kind of like a, spam email, basically, that I received from one of the companies that we ended up going on tour with. And it was so unique and bizarre at the time to see this kind of like, the genesis of online dating, basically, but with Russian women who wanted to marry me, just, with the click of a button. So that was kind of when I first started thinking about this as a film. And then, as things have changed in our society, dating online has become a little bit more common. It kind of was like perfect idea because I really wanted to do something that was kind of accessible to everyone. Everyone has these ideas of wanting to find love. They have a reference point for it. But I also wanted to have a subject that was kind of, everyone had a preconceived notion about this subject. And so there was something to change. There was an idea to change there. And so it was something I was able to use as a filmmaker to kind of like take people on a journey or, entertain them a little bit as we, kind of develop the characters and follow them through this path of, trying to find love.
And what's really interesting is finding love is not exclusive to anybody, as you have found out through how many miles did you log traveling back and forth to the Ukraine?
Oh, I was a 1K, 100,000-mile flyer 2 years in a row, so it was quite a few miles those 2 years of shooting this film.
Okay, well, now the big question I'm sure everybody wants to know is, did you get to use all the frequent flyer miles yet?
Well, actually, yes. I used them right away on my producer to fly him with me. So it was just another way for us to save money.
Well, and when you're doing an indie, low budget, no budget, especially a documentary, every penny you save, go.
Yeah. I mean, it was not. I self-financed the film, so it was a little stressful at times. It's like it adds up, and when you get into, this is my first documentary as a feature, and so when I really didn't know how long it would take to finish the film, and so editorial kind of probably goes on a little bit longer than anyone ever thinks, and you're never quite done when you can tweak this, perfect that, and at some point you just have to be done with it because you're out of money, right?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up about self-financing. Because and as a matter of fact, I was just talking with my video and editor, Lydia, earlier about this, about Zach Braff's movie, where he went and he popped it out on Kickstarter and created the huge furor about, here's somebody who's working, who has assets, who has access, and is seeking dollars from other people. And then we have Kevin Costner, who ponied up the money to get his film Black or White made, in addition to others that he's done in the past. Mel Gibson, the same thing. What is it that makes you, as a filmmaker, as a director, how strongly do you have to believe in something to make that leap to self-finance as opposed to going other routes?
Yeah, I think there's good and bad things to both ways of doing it. You give up a lot of control if it's not your money. Ultimately, it's not yours if you become a director for hire, and I don't like that idea, and I'm a businessman, as much as I am a filmmaker, and I think that that's not necessarily the common, way that people think about filmmakers, but, if you want to continue to make films, you probably have to keep them under a certain amount of money, and you have to put them in on budget just like you do any other project in the world. So, to me, taking ownership financially kind of goes with taking ownership of the film. I don't know, this is that just makes sense to me at this point in my life, and I think the bigger a film gets, the less able you are to, necessarily finance everything on your own. But it really shows, potential investors that, this is something that you're going to be careful about their money and spend it the way that you would. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think you really have to believe in your film to put your own money into it. But shouldn't you believe in everything you do? I don't know. It's just kind of common sense to me to put my money into it.
And putting your own money into it also, does that make you more judicious when you're shooting, when you're formulating, when you're making these 100,000 miles worth of trips 2 years in a row back and forth to the Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And that's where it kind of comes to a fault, right? It's like you start to get stressed out about what you're spending because, and sometimes that can limit your creative ability because you put the limitations of money first before you do what necessarily the best creative option would be. And so I think both have, good purposes, but I definitely felt that stress personally and will continue to feel stress as a filmmaker because, the first thing I think about is how much something's going to cost. And then I think about, if I should really need that compared to what I can afford. And, you're constantly making compromises. I don't think it matters how much money you have. You're always going to have to make a compromise at some point, even if you're, making a $200 million film. I'm sure that person had to make some kind of compromise based on budget, even though it sounds ridiculous. It's just the way it is. And so, it's just kind of, you're just a little bit more aware of it, and it's both a blessing and a curse, I think.
Well, and one thing you didn't compromise on was creating an interesting documentary due in large part to the selection of your subjects, shall we say, both the males and the corresponding Ukrainian females. How do you go about, for those that don't know how this works and how you then put this together, how did you find the men who would be the subjects and the women in the Ukraine who would become subjects in this documentary?
Well, the film, I didn't cast the film like you would. I think most people usually find the characters of their film before they start shooting it. Well, that's not the way we did it. What we did is we kind of did a spray and pray kind of method. So actually, I met all of the men that were in my film and the women later, basically by going to Ukraine and going on what's called a romance tour, which is a group-led tour for men who want to meet women from Ukraine, and they go on buses around the country and meet, a bunch of different women in every city.
Now,
So I just went on one of those and started shooting, and I shot as many people as quickly as I could and started to see who was the most interesting and what was happening with them. And then, sometimes they'd meet a girl, and that's when we would get entry to meeting those women that are in the film. So it was kind of like just a exploration, and it's a little crazy because we shot like probably 100 different guys, of 5 of which are in the film. So it's pretty chaotic to try to make a film that way, and I don't think I would ever do it again. But at the same time, I don't know how else you would make something like this film.
Now your romance tour, was that through the group A Foreign Affair?
Yeah. So we went on these tours that is run by A Foreign Affair, which has loveme.com's URL, which is the name of the film. And, that's their business model, is they help people meet, via online, and then they take them over there to the countries where they're, talking with these women to meet them.
Well, and the guys that you ended up following, I'm just intrigued by the selection that you got. And they did kind of just bubble to the surface as you were shooting.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird because sometimes the most introverted guy who you have a hard time talking to will have the most insane story or the most spectacular thing happen to him, and this and when it comes to something that matters of the heart, you really can't predict anything. It's like, who's going to fall in love? Why are they going to fall in love? Why are they, if they're in love, period, who's going to maybe get taken advantage of, and why they're going to get taken advantage of. And, the guys that are going on these tours, for the most part, they've kind of run out of the options for, dating domestically. And, that could also lead to the type of guy that might not be the most outgoing or charming, and so you really got to continue down and really follow and keep up with them to see what's happening to really get to the core of the story. And at least that's what I discovered in making the film.
Well, and that's I really like that you did that, because you show us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We see the guys that go in with no expectations, and they do find love. They have happy endings. We see people who have preconceived notions that go in with very unrealistic fantasy expectations, and it's a disaster, and you just sit there and you want to just slap them upside the head as you're watching them. It's like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
You show a slice of everything. Nothing is hands off.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a slice of life, but that's what dating is. Everyone that dates knows what it is. Especially when you're dating online. You put so much into the idea of what's on the other end. You don't really know what that person's like, because you're communicating, via a text or a message, or, and then in this situation via, a different language, a different cultural context. The way it is kind of, unhuman. So to show the failures and to show the successes is just the way it is in reality. There's a lot of failures and there's a lot of successes anywhere in dating. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think it would have been proper or entertaining if we had just shown, a bunch of failures, or if we had just shown a bunch of successes. Mm-hmm. I think you got to have both sides of it to really get a feeling of, matters of the heart.
Now, your production values, with a documentary like this, most people think you just pick up a camera, you go and shoot. You have some really superlative production values here with your cinematography. You have some beautiful shots. And then Carol Marturi's editing is absolutely incredible. Did you work with, when you were shooting, your cinematography, your editing, was this culling it down as you went, or did you wait till you got all 400 hours of film shot and then decide to look at this?
I think honestly, we finished shooting before we started editing. So, it was, the cinematography is just kind of second nature, because it's what I do, and on a documentary, usually, I don't know if sometimes you have a trained cinematographer working on it at a certain budget point. But luckily, since I am a cinematographer before a director, I was able to do that.
And then, it's a budget point you didn't have. So
yeah, I had allocated and saved money for the film, and so I had an idea of. Obviously, I went about 3 times over what I was expecting to spend. But and then it takes. I think it takes trusting somebody else and trusting Carol to take my vision and refine it and find what's best in it. I really think that you need an editor to look at it with an objective eye, and you have to find somebody that really understands what you want and trust in them as much as you can trust in anyone, really, because if you don't have somebody that's on the same page as you, or you're not communicating on aesthetics or pacing or all that kind of stuff, and it's a lot of work. We worked at this and revised and changed it 100 times, mm-hmm. and to make it have that kind of, pacing where we really enjoyed it. And, ultimately I got really lucky with Carol being able to do all this kind of stuff.
Now,
so,
how beneficial was it?
I feel pretty blessed.
How beneficial was it having Carol come in with a fresh eye? Was she able to see storylines?
You can't do. There's people that can do that stuff, but with a film like this, there was a lot of scenes and ideas, but you really need a fresh perspective, because you get emotionally attached to things. Sometimes it's just a shot. Sometimes it's a whole person. That you might have to cut out of the film, which, in this situation we had to cut out a lot of people. And, you can't take away, you can't necessarily, as a director who's filming everything, look at it with an objective point of view because you have had these experiences and you've been in the trenches shooting it, and you're like, I spent 2 weeks with that person, and now we're going to cut the whole thing out, and it's just like, that goes back to the spending your own money kind of thing, it kind of drives you nuts because you wasted all these trips to Ukraine. And, what's funny is actually most of the characters that are in our film, we met all of them on the first trip to Ukraine, and I went 5 times. So the 4 times following that were kind of just a waste.
Well, and I'm getting a cue that we have to take a break right now, John. If you want to hold on for 1 minute,
sure.
We'll be back to you.
Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is the #1 newspaper in Culver City, covering local news, politics, and community events, with sports by Mitch Chortkoff and movie reviews by Debbie Lynn Elias. Culver City Observer is the place to go to be in the know. When you think Culver City and the heart of Screenland, think Culver City Observer. When you think movies and movie reviews, think Culver City Observer. Culver City Observer, a division of Arizona Newspaper Group, is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com.
And welcome back to Behind the Lens. I've got Jonathon Narducci on the line. We have been talking about Love Me, a documentary on mail-order brides. And I know I've got Jane Clark, the writer-director of Crazy Bitches, on hold. So I'm going to wrap up quickly with Jonathon here. I know the film's coming out this Friday. Perfect Valentine film, John.
Oh, yeah. It's a great film to watch with that special person, so you can see how lucky you are.
And I know it's going to be on VOD. Is it going to be on all platforms? Is it just iTunes? Is it?
No, it's on all the platforms that you could think of. So iTunes, I think, is the main one that we're concentrating on. But, it'll be on Amazon and cable VOD as well.
So in other words, I can go to my less than trustworthy Time Warner cable and find it on there.
Yep, that's correct.
All right. Jonathon, and any DVD plans for this one?
I don't really think about those kind of things, so I don't really know. I guess I should, but hopefully, and at some point, maybe in some theaters around every once in a while.
Well, Jonathon, thank you so much. Everybody really, you're right, everybody needs to sit with their loved one or the one they hate and watch this Friday the 13th, Valentine's weekend. Jonathon Narducci and Love Me. And our complete interview, I'm going to have a written form from the one that we did the other day with a review of the documentary will be out on my website, Examiner, and a bunch of other places sometime this week.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks a lot, Jonathon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And there she is, the woman.
Hello.
The woman. Hello, Jane Clark. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I hear we have a little friend in the background.
Yeah, I just put the rodent outside.
Well, today...
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, I'm sitting here with my plush Baymax, my plush Gruff from the new Disney animated Tinkerbell movie. We have to have little creatures around us.
Yeah, keeps you warm.
So, we've already been warned. We have to limit the number of times we say the title of this film.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
I've already said it.
It's not the first time we've run into things like this before, but I'm always a little startled,
I was actually mortified and shocked.
Yeah,
but
that's okay then.
That's okay. I've only said it twice. We can say it 5 more times. So we're going to say it again now. Jane Clark, the writer-director of one of the craziest, most fun, and authentically heartwarming films for the Valentine weekend, Crazy Bitches.
Sounds like the heartwarming and Valentine's and crazy don't really go together, does it?
But once you see this film, it does. And this is a film, it's predicated upon a lot of opposites. It's what we don't expect. How did you come up with this idea and put this film together? Because I think it's fascinating the way you did this.
Well, thanks. I'm really interested as a writer in what makes everybody a complete person. You come into a situation and you meet somebody and you make an instant judgment about who that person is. And then if you take the time to get to know them and you start, you allow yourself to realize the layers that they have, it either deepens your knowledge of them and what you thought they were, or it completely negates the first impression. And so it's sort of that idea that I was going for, because I was originally inspired by a friend who we were having lunch, and she showed me she said something to me that illustrated an insecurity, but the way she said it was in a very vain way. And it happened to tweak one of my own insecurities, and it got me thinking about how we are so much of those two things, and how women can sometimes forget what they're saying and forget the other person and use their words in a way that ends up hurting. And that's sort of the genesis, but out of it came this idea that, I knew she wasn't trying to hurt my feelings. I knew that she was really saying it because she wasn't overly confident. So it was that duality that really interested me. And I think it's just at the base of it, it's just human makeup,
Mm-hmm. For those that are listening, the film, it's a group of women, sorority sisters, moving on in life from all walks of life, all different mentalities, ideologies, social strata, and as women do, they get very catty with each other. It's just a fact of life. And slowly, while they are on this lovely weekend retreat, they start dropping like flies. And the fact that it takes place on this lovely little ranch location, flies are probably present with all the animals wandering around. So,
yeah, well, I can tell you flies were present at least while we were shooting.
One of the great things about this film, Jane, I know we talked about it, is when you have bodies that are dropping, you have bloodletting, you have different manner of madness, mayhem, and death. It becomes, to the observant eye, colors of red, colors of blood, body position, corpse positioning. You paid a lot of attention to these little details of minutia that add so much to the film.
Well, yeah, thanks. I really love detail. It's just part of the fun of it. And, in all honesty, the script, which is, as it was shot, is very dense. I mean, there's a lot of material there that, you're going to want to go back and watch it again, because the first time you're focusing on who's dying and why they're dying and who's doing it. The next time you already know who the killer is, you can sort of let it go, and the details will start, coming to the surface more. But I lost a lot of details when I was shooting because that I had incorporated into the original script, because we just simply ran out of time. You're shooting fast and you just don't have time to incorporate it. But those little things that, I really love the idea that somebody will go back and go, wait, I didn't see that last time. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really interesting idea, or that's a really interesting thing that's happening in the background, or thing that we weren't made clearly aware of up front. Like, I like the subtlety of it. So yeah, I spend a lot of time trying to do things accurately. I think some of that came from also, my first feature was a film called Meth Head, and it's based on true stories, and I spent a lot of time with that film making sure the details were absolutely exact, because I knew that if I didn't, anybody who had been through the addiction, I would just get killed. Mm-hmm. That I wanted those people to see the absolute authenticity of the film, and I think that was training ground. As I went forward into Crazy Bitches and other scripts I'm writing, I'm spending the time doing the research and spending the time thinking about the little connections, the small moments, to give it that layered depth. I think it's interesting.
Mm. And two of the most layered pieces of depth that I love are the colors of red for the various parts of the body that bleed and how the reds differentiate, and also the body positionings of the corpses. And I know you had somebody that helped you with that.
Yeah, I mean,
he needs a shout out.
The body positioning in some cases was a fun creative choice, and it had to do with where we were shooting and the limitations. But I have a special effects guy, a visual effects guy. He works out of Canada. His name is Chris Orchard, and Orchard Studios. He's an amazing visual effects guy because he, like me, he really cares about the details. And there were some things that I didn't even realize, and he later came up and, emailed me and said, Jane, this body should really be like this, in this position. And, my response was, well, great, Chris, next time someone dies in my movie, I'll know that. What am I supposed to do about it now? And he said, well, I can fix it. And I was stunned. I was just floored. And I said, it didn't even occur to me that he had the capability of actually rearranging
a dead body.
Body parts. Yeah. I mean, it was just interesting. And the fact that he went back and did it in like an hour and a half or 2 hours, I was like, oh, I see. These are the things he really, really likes to do. And asking him to add rain is like, it takes him a week because it's boring as all hell. And he's like, okay, I'll give it to you. But the stuff that had to do with the blood and the stuff that had to do with the bodies, he was on it and really creative and had a lot of solutions to problems that we actually ran into on set that were just, things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And, props sometimes don't work. And, while you're shooting and you're shooting fast, you spend a lot of time going, I will fix that in post. I will figure out how to fix that in post.
Mm-hmm.
And he fixed it in post. So I'm fairly impressed.
Well, something you didn't have to fix in post is some beautiful cinematography by Cecilia Guerrero. And I know Cecilia she's worked with Roger Deakins, with Vilmos Zsigmond, with Lubeski. She has an incredible pedigree of mentors and teachers, and it shows with your cinematography. And you get to showcase the most beautiful parts of Malibu at the Great Spirits Ranch. Yeah,
that set was just a little mini miracle. And, and definitely Cecilia just went to town. I especially love, because one of the things that I really like layering in a shot, I really like when you see the front of, something that's happening on the surface, but in the back, in another room, or behind something, there's something else going on. And I was really interested in how do we create that, a little bit of suspense just out of the sheer way she would light the dark corners, or not light them. And we talked a lot about that, but she just delivered that so beautifully. And there's a real sensitivity to her lighting and the way she sees women in particular. It was also something that we were both very conscious of. This is a film filled with women and attractive women, and but each with their own little foibles and their own little special qualities. And we wanted to make sure that everything that was interesting and lovely about them was present. From a storytelling purpose, it was important to me because they do sometimes act in less than likable ways. So I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure that when we saw them on screen, no matter how they were acting, there was a quality of likability there, even if it was just a visual thing. And she was so conscious of it. She was great at calling and going, Jane, by the way, we might want to watch the dark circles here, or she just had this beautiful, beautiful eye. And, we had actually worked together on Meth Head. She was my second camera. I shoot to camera all the time, and she was my second camera operator. And there were times when she'd get what I needed, and then, she'd say, if you have everything you need, do you mind if I just shoot some stuff? And I said, yeah, absolutely, feel free, because I'm fine with the coverage that we have over here. And when I got into editing, I realized that she had gotten me all these special little storytelling pieces that really saved me in the editing room. And that was where I started thinking, this could be a real relationship. And then on top of it, she's this beautiful person, and we got along really, really well, and it was a real feeling of collaboration. And that's what I look for with everybody that I work with, and it doesn't always happen as easily or smoothly as
you'd like.
with her.
Well, and something I know everybody is probably running through their mind right now with all the women on set, all the women behind the lens, in front of the lens. What was the bathroom situation like? Did we have a bar situation of a line going around the ranch?
Well, that's a very interesting question.
And that nobody else will ever ask you.
What?
That no one else will ever ask you.
No, exactly. No, I have to say, strangely, thinking back on it, there was no line at the bathroom. I think we only had one operating bathroom down in the main camp, and then base camp. All the actresses had, there were trailers, so there were bathrooms up there, and there were also bathrooms up there for the crew. But you had to travel up there to get to them. You had to take we had a little golf cart that ran back and forth. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually surprised, thinking back, that we actually didn't have long waits. But I think that, when people get on the set, and this is going to sound strange maybe, but when you're on the set and you're working, you hold it.
It's not strange. I mean, I spent enough years on production. I'd be out in Indian Dunes on location, and that's exactly what you do.
Yeah. And to some degree you forget. You're like, oh yeah, I have to pee, that's right. Okay, now, when this scene's over. And then you just keep not to do, I have to say. But it's still, I still think that's part of the reason, because it's just it wasn't overused. Though we did have to clean it out afterwards. We were responsible for it was a bathroom that was on the set, that belonged to the property.
Oh, okay.
On septic, so we did have to.
So you were responsible for that. But no, that's always a big question that women have every time they go somewhere. It's how long is the wait for the bathroom? So
I know, and especially because there's never enough bathrooms.
That's
it's like you go to a club and they've got 2 stalls, and it's not enough for the 500 people that are packed in the club.
One day,
or the women, I should say.
One day, an architect is going to realize that.
I know. I don't know why they haven't.
I don't know when they will, but now you've got a really eclectic cast. You've got a great group of women here. How did you go about casting this film?
Well, it's interesting. Some of them are old friends of mine, and I actually wrote each of the roles in the film for a particular actress that I'm friends with. As we got closer to shooting, some of the actresses had to drop out or weren't available at the time once we set the start date. They just weren't available, and I found myself. It was a little bit frantic because I take my casting extremely seriously, and with Method, I think I spent. To some degree, I spent about a month and a half casting because it was spread out over a period of time. But I really spend the time. And I had someone drop out. I replaced them. A couple other people dropped out. The person I replaced had to drop out. And I came back from Cannes with 4 lead roles unfilled and 1 day of casting to do it. And I cannot explain how it happened, but out of the small little group of each character that I auditioned, the perfect person walked in. It never happened. 4 perfect castings out of 1 day, and I cannot see anybody else playing those roles anymore, even though they were written originally for someone else.
Yeah, and
I just got lucky.
And having seen the film, the actresses embody the roles so beautifully.
Yeah, they really do.
You don't get so often. You get the feeling sometimes an actress is cast and it's like, no, they just don't work in that role. I don't care how famous they are or how good they might look, but there's something that doesn't gel with them, with those character traits. That I never felt that with any of your castings here.
Well, this is the thing, because I think partly because I used to be an actor. I guess I would still consider myself an actor just because you never stop being one, but like I said, I take the casting seriously. I'm not only, and one of the luxuries was, and the detriments is, I didn't cast any named people. I didn't play that game where I had a casting director that was going out and going, here's 3 actresses, and these will pull in a certain number, and blah, blah, blah. It's negative. When you go to try to sell the movie, distributors aren't so thrilled with that idea, and it really put us in a little bit of a bind for a while. But the luxury of that is I can actually look for people who have the essence of the character, because I really believe that actors are their best when you are asking them to tap their true essence. Mm-hmm. Which sounds weird considering these girls are all bitches, and
that's okay. We still have 3 more. The 3 more that we can use.
Okay. that is complete. Acting on their part, because but what was important to me was that their essence was likable. That you have this, that you can, like I said, along with Ceci's shooting of them and the way she made them look, and the way the makeup artist made them look, and the clothes and everything else. I wanted each person to feel all those pieces of them. I wanted you to see them immediately, make a judgment, but be able to quickly adjust as you learned a little bit about their underbelly. Mm-hmm. And I think that the best actors come in with that, and then you just find a way to allow them the freedom to let it rise to the surface. And these actors are all really, really good actors with great resumes, and have been working a long time. So I knew I had good people to bolster me.
And it certainly does show on screen. So now this is VOD and digital. Where is this going to be come Friday?
Right, yeah. Friday it goes out everywhere on the internet. Well, lots of places on the internet, like iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Hulu. I mean, we're a bunch of places on the internet, and then VOD, it's like Time Warner, Comcast, Uverse. There's about 20 of them, and every place we're releasing on Thursday is on our website. It's www.thecrazybitchesmovie.com. And then April 1st, we are releasing DVD and Blu-ray.
Yay!
Yeah, and we're going to put some extras on it, have some fun with it. And then sometime early May, we'll release internationally. These early releases are only for the U.S. and Canada.
Wonderful. Well,
yeah.
I am
And then maybe if we're lucky, we'll get a TV dealer too. We're playing Sci-Fi Madrid.
Oh.
Sponsored by the Sci-Fi channel, so we're sort of hoping we'll get a deal out of that.
Oh, well, I can't wait. And I'm so thrilled because when we talked the other day, you didn't have a date yet for DVD. So this is...
Yeah, you inspired me.
I'm glad I'm good for something.
See, you did. I was like, you know what? I think we really just need to commit to this and make it, set a date.
I'm thrilled. Well, will you call back in April to talk about the extras on the DVD?
Yeah, you bet I will.
Oh, terrific. Jane, thank you so much. An absolute joy. And I will have a review on the film out before it comes out at the end of the week.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was great. I had a great time.
Oh, so did I. Jane Clark, writer-director, Crazy Bitches, Friday, VOD, digital, everywhere domestically. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Talk to you soon then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, we lived. My sound engineer he's not having a conniption fit back there, so that's a very good thing. But we got a few minutes to go here today, and so before we go, I want to go back briefly to Big Hero 6 and our Oscar-nominated Don Hall and Chris Williams, because I got to ask them the all-important question. With the Oscars looming, what's up?
How are you going to wind down after Oscar, after everything's done, win, lose, or draw?
Well, it's really just that. I mean, working on one of these films is all-consuming. You pour everything you have, and you work with hundreds of people who are giving everything they have, and there's such an energy to it, and it's important to step away and to really open yourself up to new ideas, and I think it's important to read, it's important to travel. And
make breakfast for your kids.
Make breakfast for your kids, and really not race back in the next thing. Just stay in tune and figure out what you're passionate about, because this movie came from Don's passion for the genre, and I think what you don't want to do is put yourself in a position of racing. to the next thing just to stay busy.
Yeah, and also talked with enough people because I've never taken. They always offer us sabbaticals when you're a department head or a director, like a month, and I've never taken one because I was always on to the next thing, and I have raced from one thing to another, and it does kind of catch up with you creatively after a while, and so I want to take I want to take enough of a break to start to get bored. You know what I mean? Because then you're ready to come back. Once because it takes a little bit to come down from something like this. That was, like Chris said, we're just all encompassing, all in. For 3.5 years, that's all you talked about, all you thought about. So you need to have enough time off to kind of leave that behind and start to get intrigued by filling your days with doing something different and interesting and be with your family, because they sacrifice a great deal as well. And then when you start to get kind of itchy and bored, then I think it may be time to come back.
Well, a small technical glitch there that will be corrected when you see the video package later and maybe this afternoon on the archival audio. But not that we don't want to hear from Don and Chris twice, 3 times, 4 times. They're always good. But Chris Williams had one great post note about the Oscars, about winning and what it means.
Well, we already win. I mean, we're already doing what we do for a living. You know what I mean? Like, we grew up drawing and loving cartoons and loving animation, and now we actually work at Disney Animation. So I try not to lose sight of that when people are getting really caught up in awards season. We're very lucky, for sure.
And lucky indeed they are, and hopefully that luck will be with them come February 22nd at the Oscars. Next week, Greg will be back here. Chad Miller will be here. Josh Idikoff will be here. We'll be talking Oscars. We'll also be talking about McFarland USA, Kevin Costner's new movie. Anybody who watches the video this week, you'll see an assortment of visual aids here. In the coming weeks, you'll be meeting this lovely little man here, the Never Beast, also known as Gruff. And before I go today, I just want to give a shout out. A new filmmaker that hit me up, sent me a link to a film he's done, Troy McGatlin, Love and Teleportation. Any filmmakers out there, you want me to check out your film? Send it to me, info@moviesharkdeblore.com. I'm happy to take a look, do a review, give you some thoughts. And that's exactly what Troy's going to get for me later tonight. So, that's it for this week. For Behind the Lens, I'm Debbie Lynn Elias. We'll see you next week.